This is episode 32 of the Discipleship Directives with Dr. Dan and Crawford. I am your host, Vidal Muniz. Dr. Crawford is the founder of DiscipleAllNations.org. Also, Dr. Crawford is the professor emeritus of evangelism and discipleship at the Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary. Dr. Crawford, always a pleasure, sir. What's happening today?
Good to be here.
Yes, you're excited?
Sure, yes, sir. I'm ready.
I hope we're getting better at this podcasting experience, Dr. Crawford.
We better be getting better, or we better turn it over to somebody else.
We're on podcast 32, so it's hard to believe that it's been 32 weeks now.
That's right.
But it's always good to see you, sir. Thank you for being here. And our guest, always special guest, special people that the Lord allows us to bring into the conversation. And today is no exception. And I'm speaking of my brother, Pastor Daniel Caballero. How are you feeling? How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm feeling good this morning. Yes.
It's a good day?
It's a very good day. Busy day, but it's a very good day.
It's a good day every time you come and join us. So thank you. Thank you for being here. We're privileged to have you. Brother Daniel, we'd love to hear just briefly, give us an update. How's life? How is family? How are things are going?
Well, things are going good. Thanks God. All things considered, we have to look forward through our Lord Jesus Christ, will bring us forward and opens some new doors, new windows, and we're ready for whatever God brings to our lives.
I like that attitude. Dr. Crawford. I like it. That really, helps you. Whatever you might be facing, whatever comes your way, whatever you're seeking. So
yes, I'm very pleased to meet Brother Dan Crawford. It's been an inspiration in my life, and I read that book, two of them, but one of them has really impressed me. That first one, that spiritual welfare, that book, and I notice things that I haven't noticed before in the Bible. Sometimes preachers like me, they go so fast without putting attention or stop what really means there. And I already got 3-4 sermons out of the book, and I have preached every one of them, and I'm going to continue preaching because I thought it was powerful. That the Sermon on the Mount that really impressed me, the way the book, they say in the beginning, he said Jesus went and sat down, and they said they had two purposes because of that. And when something speak about the purpose, I want to know what's going on there. The first one, because they sit down. There was their style to sit down. The teachers back in those days. But the second one, that really impressed me more, because they say, Jesus, when he sit down, they try to tell these people, hey, I'm the same with you. I'm not above you. And that really impressed me, because sometimes we think we know something, or sometimes we think we are somebody. And when we hear this, when we read this, oh man, I need to humble more. I like to be more like Jesus,
Yeah,
And that's I appreciate the book, and as you're reading it, as you go through it, because I want to learn more about it. And thank you, Mr. Dan Crawford, for
Brother Crawford. So just listening to Daniel jump into this topic as a professor, you've been a professor, seminary professor for so many years. What's your reaction when you find pastors that are eager to learn, that are teachable, versus obviously sometimes we approach, life thinking that we know it all. But here you have a brother that, how long you been doing ministry again?
July the 22nd, I'll be 48 years preaching the gospel. 48
years of gospel, proclamation, and eager to learn as if it was yesterday. What are your thoughts on that? How do you react to that?
That's exactly what most of us tell our students, that you are a lifelong learner. You never quit learning. If you stop learning, you get stagnant and dull. So he's doing exactly what I would hope for all of my students. And we have students that come to seminary that are eager to learn, and then we have students that already know it all. And so you can't teach them much. They think they've got all the answers. And that reflects all the way through ministry. You come across pastors who think they know everything, and they don't want to learn anything from you. And then you have pastors like this brother who's still learning. And that's the thing. If you ever stop learning, it's over.
Yeah. You're done.
I got something to say about that. When I began I went to 6 years to study Bible in University of Americas, BUA, I believe.
BUA.
That's exactly what you're saying. In the beginning, when I told my wife we'll go over there, my wife encouraged me. She said, "Let's go. We need to go study." I sell a house in South Texas, half an acre, full house, complete house, for $20,000. And they give me $5,000 down payment, and I went to study the Bible. And the way I told my wife a couple of times, I don't think this guy can teach me anything. I'm serious. I told my wife several times, I don't think this guy can teach me. They said, "Well, you never know." And let me tell you something. When I was there the first semester, before the first semester, the first month, I was embarrassing for the teachers. I learned that I didn't know nothing. And we just the beginning.
Well, and again, you were cultivating a teachable spirit. That
Yes.
Obviously, it worked, because that's what school typically or hopefully does in the life of the student. Allows
Yeah.
you to build the habits.
Yeah.
Not only to study the Bible, but to become a lifelong learner. That's what
Yes.
we're talking about here.
Yes.
Now, speaking of learning, you have been one of those pastors in the pilgrimage, in the journey of Dr. Crawford's ministry in South Texas within the last year and a half or so,
Yes.
on the monthly conferences. You've been attending the conferences. You mentioned earlier on the books and some of the sermons that you have gotten from that.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you remember or you can think of from Dr. Crawford's teaching, overall teaching, that has become helpful or relevant, helpful to you in your ministry or preaching?
I believe the most powerful thing that I've had learned from Dr. Crawford is the sincerely and also the humbleness, the way they teach. And to me, it's a lot. To me, it's a lot because a lot of people teaching, but they don't teach about the Bible, they teach about themselves. There's a big difference there, and you can tell the difference. When someone is their heart is teaching through the Bible is gonna make me understand, not Dr. Crawford. So that's very, to me, very powerful statement. I will listen to these guys very much because I say, okay, this guy had the heart to learn about the Bible and teach according to the Bible.
Mhm. So you're describing authenticity.
Yeah.
You're describing once again, something that's coming from Dr. Crawford, uh, the way that he conveys this, because ultimately we want to model that.
Sure.
We're gonna because as preachers and pastors,
Yes.
for you and I,
Yes.
we want to. That's how we want to
Yeah.
be perceived when we do
Yes.
ministry, and we're
Yes.
able to do that. Dr. Crawford, yesterday, and I asked him before we began recording the podcast. We had a special guest for our monthly pastors meetings. So wanted just to ask you on your experience, especially when with the topic of marriage, which was kind of the topic that was brought into the conversation. Um, Anything that you found or you saw within that experience that you found it helpful, for pastors, for our audience yesterday.
Well, there are a number of things that I thought were very helpful, but especially for me, the idea that when we're called by God, we have a higher standard
Mhm.
than anybody else.
Yes.
So we have to live up to this standard, and
Yes.
that's scary. It's threatening. It's tempting to abandon that standard, and we've seen, national scene. We've seen ministers that have fallen from that. But I just thought he really emphasized that, and the standard that's set so much higher than everybody else who's not being called by God to full-time vocational ministry he's talking about, or bivocational ministry.
Sure, sure, sure. So you got an opportunity to listen to the Sassers yesterday. You know the presenters.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
they were very. I don't think I missed the INEA conference since you got here last year to now. I don't remember missing one. I think I'll be in there every single time, which is very good. And I don't want to miss him because since that time I went to seminary until today, my perspective has changed. Saying, okay, I need to quit learning when I die.
Yeah.
That's when I want to quit learning. Until long as I'm alive, breathing, I need to keep learning because you will learn with anybody.
Well, I got good news for you. Speaking of learning, because I found out before we started recording the podcast that a new book is coming up.
Oh, very
So,
good.
speaking of learning, you're going to get more material to dive into and to learn from. So, Dr. Crawford, talk to us. What's coming up?
Well, some years ago, I started what we call Dr. Dan's Monday Morning Manna. And it's a one-paragraph spiritual jumpstart for the week. There's a subscription list, and then it's posted on Facebook and some other places. And I have a good friend who was friends of mine when we lived in the Valley many years ago, who is president of a publishing company. And he called me. He said, "How many of these have you written?" And I said, "I don't know." He said, "Well, when you get 365, let me know. We'll publish a book." So we did that, and it was called Morning Manna, and it was a subtitle of some sort. But it was a collection of these where you get one a day, 365 of them. Well, I kept writing them. Book came out, kept writing. Lo and behold, I had another 365.
Mm.
So I called him. I said, "You want to do a sequel, a follow-up?" "Sure." So this is coming up, More Manna, what this one's called. So it's another day by day, one for every day of the year, and it's a one-paragraph, brief something, spiritual jumpstart for the day. And it's done, it's proofread, it's ready to be published, except for the cover. We're still working on what kind of cover to put on it. As you know, many people buy a book because they see the cover.
It's true.
So
Very
they
true.
sell books by the cover.
Yeah. Yeah.
Once we get the cover established, we're just a matter of weeks probably before that book is on the market.
So this is the sequel?
It's
then?
a sequel. It's another 365 daily paragraphs that we call daily manna.
Like a devotional.
It's a devotional.
It's
Right.
somewhat like a devotional.
So he
Yeah.
does the devotional or type devotional on a weekly basis.
Yes.
He's been
Yes.
on it for years now. How many years you been doing this?
I don't know. Enough for 2 books.
Enough for 2 books, but
Oh.
it's been years.
Yeah.
Oh, so I'm going to ask you both a question, but let me begin with you, Dr. Crawford. So you're speaking to a local pastor,
Mhm.
specifically in South Texas, but anywhere in the world. How would you recommend they can use that book?
Well, for one, use would be your own personal time. Just, I find that a lot of preachers, myself included, tend to only study the Bible when they're looking for sermons. Well, this is not necessarily sermon material, although there's a lot of sermon material in there. But this is for your own personal daily growth.
Mm.
And it's exactly what I subtitled it to be, a spiritual jumpstart for the day.
Very good.
And then the second thing would be, you read, every day has a passage of scripture with it, as well as a devotional thought. So maybe there's a passage of scripture you say, wow, that make a good sermon.
Mhm.
So you take it from there and develop it into a sermon. But there are no sermons in the book, just sermon ideas, thoughts, seeds.
Jumpstart into
Jumpstart,
something on
yeah.
that. So
Yes.
obviously, Dr. Crawford, you've invested your life on teaching and mentoring, evangelism and discipleship. So I'm just thinking right now with this upcoming sequel of
Uh-huh.
the previous devotional, package, we can also use it. I'm just thinking out loud right now. as we disciple other people.
Sure.
And we create some sort of accountability that we
Sure.
read together and obviously meditate on whatever the teaching might be from the passage. Because I'm thinking you have built the habit to write this, right? I mean, it's a habit now. It's something that is predisposed in your system. So that's what we're talking about, learning, the learning, the component of reading books. Which
Yes.
in your case, you do.
Yes.
Attending a seminar with Dr. Crawford on a monthly basis is a habit. It's something that most of us, we don't have the time. We make the time because we prioritize over these things.
Yeah.
We're about to close our time together. I just want to ask, again, you've been under the teaching of Dr. Crawford for a while.
Mhm.
Is there anything that you might think or you would like to ask Dr. Crawford? Any questions, any comments that you might found either from yesterday's conference on marriage or just as you think of discipleship? If you think of it, you're a big time evangelism guy.
Yeah.
I've known you now for years.
Yeah.
And this brother, Dr. Crawford, has invested many years in
My life.
and this brother is willing to go anywhere, anytime, whatever the Lord
Yeah.
leads. Am I right?
You're right.
All right. So speaking of evangelism, what would you like to ask Brother Crawford in that field of evangelism?
I really believe that South Texas, we need an explosion, Brother Don Crawford, here in the valley, like they did in Jerusalem when Steve got killed. And explosions so that people go out and don't be afraid to preach and teach the gospel of Jesus Christ. One of the problems that I had learned lately, well, not lately, many years, that they're good pastors, but not very good evangelists. There's a big difference. Be an office guy than be a knocking doors guy. And I really believe that we need more of this and this. Because it's too easy to say to you, bring it to me. They say, go get it. And I believe, Dr. Crawford, if you ever bring another conference, I will appreciate if you bring something like this to our valley, to our local pastors. I think it would be helpful a lot.
August teaching session is on evangelism.
Oh, good.
It's on the calendar.
Good.
It's on the calendar.
Yes.
And that will be the total subject of that day.
Oh, good. Very good. Very good.
And as you know, your people are not going to rise any higher than their pastor.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever the pastor's excited about, eventually that's what the people will be excited about.
You're right.
The pastor doesn't believe in evangelism, then the people don't.
Exactly.
So if it has to do with being a role model, as well as doing what Jesus did, take them with you.
Yes. Yes.
So you go knock on somebody's door. Don't go by yourself. Take a
Exactly.
deacon with you. Somebody,
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Learn.
they learn by example.
Yeah.
And just a quick parenthesis, when it comes to evangelism, you have been a professor of evangelism for how many years? You did it in the formal setting,
22 at Southwestern Seminary.
and you travel with a lot of student projects or seminary class projects across the globe, if I'm not mistaken.
Part of my responsibility was coordinating the spring break revival services, where we sent, in some years, as many as 200 students outside of the Bible Belt to small churches in the Northeast, Northwest, where they couldn't afford to have a revival meeting because they couldn't afford a preacher. We'd send them the preacher. Maybe one had never preached before, but we'd send the preachers, and we'd pay all the bills and let them preach. So, that was every year for 22 years. Somewhere around 5,000 students.
Wow.
Practitioners. That's what we're talking about,
Set up.
practitioners,
And I
right?
tell them, when you get back, we will
Yes.
weep with those that weeping, and we will rejoice with
Yes.
those that are rejoicing.
Yes.
And
Yes.
some of them would come back and say, thank you for sending me. I've just discovered I'm not called to do that.
Yeah.
I say, I'm so glad we found that out before
That's
you
right.
took a church in South Dakota somewhere
That's right.
and
That's
couldn't
right.
get home.
That's true. That's
right.
true. Yeah.
So it was good all the way around. But
Yeah.
and for the churches, just to have somebody come in and
It's
make a light of
nothing-
fire.
Nothing wrong, to be honest, right? You say,
Well, and nothing
my-
compares with actually, hands-on
Yeah.
doing it,
Yeah.
experiencing
Yeah.
it, and going after this. So again, I knew that was part of your pilgrimage and your testimony.
And those students are all over the world.
Mhm.
They have graduated and gone, I can run, but I can't hide.
Sure.
Mm.
Everywhere I go,
Yeah.
somebody will come up and say, you don't remember me, but, and usually I don't. But
That's
then they'll
right.
say, I had your class, you sent me here, you did this.
They invited me a revival. Can I say something?
Sure, of course.
They remind me of invited me a revival in it's a Terrell, Texas, close to Terrell, Texas. I forgot the little town. And it's like 35 miles, 40 miles east of Dallas. And I got there in their parking space and nobody was there. It was closed. The door was closed, nobody was there. I said, okay, maybe a little bit early. So I wait, and one truck pull out, pickup. And then he look at me and all that. And suddenly he opened the door and come in to me. And I say, and he told me, do you remember me? I said, no, not really. He said, you used to be pastor in Dallas here? And I said, yes, many years ago, yes. I'm Peter, I'm Pedro. I didn't want to smoke and put all your smoke in your face. And I make fun of you every time you teach me about the Word of God. Now I'm a member of this church and part of the music of this church. And I said, wow.
So it worked. Evangelism. Right?
It's evangelism.
Sharing the gospel.
You have to, you really, I learned something many years ago, you have to love the people just the way they are. You can't change people. God will change it. You just preach the gospel, that's all.
That's right.
You know, Daniel, you said you were going to keep learning until the day you die.
Yes.
You're actually going to keep learning one day beyond that.
Okay.
Because you're going to learn a whole lot about heaven the next day.
That's true.
And
That's
there
true.
will be people, because you've been evangelistic in your ministry, there will be people, I think, who will come up to you in heaven and say, thank you for inviting me here.
Oh,
You may not remember
you.
me,
You may
but
not remember me, but you know, I was that guy, this
Yes.
guy. I don't know that.
Yeah.
You know, we don't know
Yeah.
a whole lot about heaven, except we're going to learn a whole lot.
yes.
First
That's
day
right.
we're there, and
That's
since
right.
there's only one day in heaven with no nights, it's going to be
Well-
a continual learning experience.
When my wife passed away in July 20th, July 21st, 2020, for a week and a half or 2 weeks, I probably received over 500 calls from Utah, Nevada, New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, Texas, Dallas, Fort Worth, Kaufman, Terrell, would have been all around that. And it, in a way, it made me feel good because there's so many people, memories. So have people, we together, we go to church together, we preach the gospel, we sing together. This kind of make you feel good, have the relationship of Jesus Christ with these people.
Well, and it reminded you the places where you have served and invested and you
Yeah.
preached and you
Yeah.
shared the gospel and you evangelized,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
that's what you were describing earlier. You know, wherever you go, you find students and people that you have met throughout the years. And now you are investing once a month here in South Texas. So thank you again, Dr. Crawford. Always a pleasure to have you. And we're privileged to have you and you sharing the resources with us. We're closing our time together and we want to close in prayer. And we would love to have you pray specifically for what you said earlier. As pastors, as church leaders,
Yes.
there is a world that needs to hear about
Yes.
Jesus Christ.
Yes.
And we have to share this gospel.
Yes.
You know, in any experience, by any means, under any condition.
Yeah.
So, would you pray for the pastors here in South
¿Lo
Texas?
puedo hacer en
and
español?
Of course, of course.
Vamos a.
This is episode number 3 of Discipleship. This is Directives podcast and Dr. Crawford. I'm here this morning with Vidal. Dr. Crawford.